Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Perfect Madness Podcast, and today we're bringing you another edition of our wrestling brilliance for you to take notes. Unfortunately for me, I'm going to have a rough time taking notes because, much like this podcast thrown together, I don't have my headphones. I don't have a normal pen. So we're going to make a chicken salad out of chicken crap. Introducing first, from California, I don't remember, Bakerfield, California, we got the man, the myth, Adam Eaton.
Wow. Yeah, Bakersfield, it's a town that no one knows, even the people that live here. We don't even know it because we're always trying to leave and go to LA. Um,
You
but
look at the
welcome
city
to,
limit sign, you're like, I don't know if this is still Bakersfield.
right, like you drive like 5 miles out and it's just like nothingness. And then you hit mountains, which is a bunch of nothingness. And then you go over the mountain and you're in LA.
Yay. The ex-home of Wrestle or SummerSlam.
Yeah,
Wow.
where I went to a lot of them. So,
Introduce
but
yourself. We're off topic.
welcome. I am the savior of the IWC, as you guys all know, because I always drop knowledge and save them from their own stupidity. Welcome to Perfect Madness Podcast, where we are more spontaneous than raw.
Which is the basic lead into this whole premise of the podcast is that, oh, I'm Jesus, by the way. You guys know me. If you don't, where have you been? The whole
What do
basis of this podcast is lack of character development from the WWE. And it's from really the top down because I can get into the wrestlers, to the refs, and to the announcers. Like, I don't care. WWE doesn't care, so why should we care? And to add some context to the argument, I'm going to bring up an issue that I've been bugging Adam Eaton about is Raw last night. I think we all can agree that was a pretty decent Raw, solid, built up towards SummerSlam. But why I hated it. And it wasn't because it wasn't entertaining. It wasn't because there wasn't good wrestling. It's because I can't get behind the wrestlers. Even now, if I were to go watch a pay-per-view, an old pay-per-view on the WWE network, I can't just watch some random match. It's hard for me to jump into a random Nitro. It's hard for me to jump into a random Raw because we'll just get two wrestlers together that are wrestling for no real reason. But if we watch a pay-per-view and they do their vignettes and all that video packages before the match, I'm like, okay, I'm pumped. I'm invested in this story, and now I can interpret what's being sold to us in the ring or told to us in the ring. And to me, that's more important than wrestling. The story. We all want a story. There's a reason UFC was failing for so many years and needed wrestlers to elevate them as a product. You watch UFC 190 with Rousey, as I did because I was extremely bored and still shooken up about Rowdy. Everything that they did for that main event match was wrestling. And everybody's going to be like, oh, UFC doesn't need wrestlers. Some of their biggest draws in the business have been wrestlers, be it Brock Lesnar or Ken Shamrock, to name the first two. And now, outside of Ronda Rousey, who's a huge wrestling fan, they bought up CM Punk just to pop ratings, who is a wrestler. WWE or UFC likes to take shots at WWF because that's wrestling. They're getting viewership through controversy. Controversy creates cash. But you can't have controversy in the WWE. You can't have spontaneity in the WWE because there's no development of the characters to make us care. We'll have my main point last night was the Intercontinental title. It was exciting because for a couple weeks they did put some investment in the character, albeit the reality era they still kept it kayfabe and talked about Ryback being injured. I didn't expect him to be back. I don't know much about staph infections, nor does the common viewer. But when he came back, that was spontaneity at one of its finer points in the current product of WWE. Even Taker returning, that was exciting. But when you have an open challenge and somebody's there within seconds, maybe give me some backstage an interview. Maybe show some people fighting backstage trying to get that opportunity. Maybe show a segment beforehand where people are jockeying and lobbying the GM, which they don't have because there's no character development in the top of the card to tell you who's running Raw. It wasn't until last night when we heard Michael Cole, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, talk about how Triple H is the principal owner, which makes no sense because you're insulting our intelligence. You keep saying it over and over, but there's no development into what that actually means. Dean Ambrose is the lunatic fringe, but what the hell does it mean? He's not going to go off the handle because it's so protected, it's so refined that the spontaneity of anything that that's the definition of spontaneity. The spontaneity in the product isn't there because everything's scripted, everything's pampered, everything's primped and beautiful. But before I go any further in my rants and pontifications, do you have anything to put in?
A couple points I'm gonna piggyback on you. The well, you brought up not being able to jump into a random Raw or just a random match on the network. I have that same issue. People all the time, like on the internet, go watch this match between such and such, and I never do that because it's like, why? Why am I gonna go watch that match? Like, yeah, I could see the skill level, but that doesn't do anything because I don't know why they're wrestling. It reminded me of this report that I read that the WWE is not adding classic content on the network because nobody's watching. Well, nobody's watching because it's incomplete libraries. Like, it took me forever to start Raw because they only had a few years. They didn't have complete years up there, so I was like, I'm going to wait. And now with Nitro, like, I'm not watching WCW pay-per-views because there's not the Nitros leading into them after 1996.
Yeah.
So it's like, I watched up until December of 96, and then I stopped.
Me
I don't
too.
know.
That's what I was just going to piggyback off that and say I stopped right before Fall Brawl, I believe it was. Whatever the September, October, one of those pay-per-views are. I
Yeah, I think
stopped watching.
September.
And it's just like, why should I continue to watch and get invested when in 2-3 months I'm going to have to wait? I'd rather them upload the entire content and I will watch throughout.
All right. And with the ECW hardcore TVs and the world class wrestling, like I would watch those, but they jump. So I don't know if like they're not putting the entire content on there or those shows aren't available. So it would go like 35 to like 40, and I'm like, okay, where are the other 5 episodes right there? So I don't know if it's just because ECW and World Class was kind of cheaper, so they don't have access. But I would like to know, like, oh, we're not adding more, like where the library is as complete as it can be. There's going to be missing shows, and then I would invest and watch more classic content. Along with the character development too. Here's my thing. Before, I would never buy a Legend T-shirt because I felt like it was outdated. I'm like, yeah, it's a Legend, it's outdated. I like to stay with the current product.
Okay.
But now, there's not a lot of... There's really nothing in the current product to make me want to buy the T-shirt. There's Enzo and Cass and Finn Balor in NXT. Just
Yes.
because they have characters. I like Dean Ambrose, but I just really kind of like his shirts. I don't really like. I want to like him, but like his shirts are just kind of cool, so I get those. But now I'm all about like getting the Legend shirts because, well, that's kind of what I'm watching on the network right now, and I'm still more invested in them than I'm in the current product.
And I think that's a sad fact that we all need to realize is that I don't care about Roman Reigns. The only people that like him are really pretty much girls because, oh my god, he's gorgeous. But there's no investment in his character. The promo him and Ambrose cut last night was more bromance and awkward than an actually good promo. Oh, how do I take my coffee? How do I take my beer? Like, who cares? That's not wrestling.
I thought that was leading somewhere, but it didn't.
I know, like Ultimate Warrior talking about fueling up a rocket ship is more relevant than bromance of how people take beer. And it didn't, at least to the rocket ship, it fit his character because he was fucking crazy. Like lunatic fringe. Warrior was nuts, but it worked. Lunatic Fringe, knowing how people take beer, mm, I don't see it. It didn't lead to anywhere.
And I don't drink, but like, does anyone drink warm beer?
Assholes and terrorists.
Like seriously, but like I thought that was leading somewhere. I thought like that was a good lead in, but
Mm-hmm.
then it went nowhere. They're like, oh, that's our point, and I'm sitting here like, what was the point?
I agree.
So
I mean, and you can't really. There's no way to relate to them as a wrestling fan, knowing how your best friend loves his coffee. I mean, what
it's
does it
like
care?
like Jesus, I know how you take your coffee. Oh, so like we're just like Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose.
Oh my god,
Like
stupid.
it is. Like
Um,
do you drink coffee? Like gives a damn? Like I don't care if you drink coffee.
I know.
Like
Maybe if they give like, if there's ways to do it, like bring up wrestling. How do I like to do a clothesline or something stupid like that? I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but there's little idiosyncrasies that if you're a really good tag team, you could come up with stuff like that. I don't know. But
and the
it's
problem
more relevant than how do I take my coffee?
we don't want to hate Roman Reigns. We're not the typical IWC that's like, oh, Roman Reigns sucks. It's not his time. No, we want Roman Reigns to succeed. Like,
Mhm.
we have nothing against him. Like, we were rooting for him. We were interested to see him take off around WrestleMania, but it's just, there's no reason to care.
And if anybody remembers during WrestleMania time where I talked about Roman Reigns needed to lose at WrestleMania just to get that babyface sympathy so people could invest themselves into that character of doing everything I can to get ahead and I keep getting screwed. The same thing that happened to Austin. You can't just keep getting handed things to you and expect to get over. That's what Roman Reigns did, had everything handed to him. Now he's having to fight his way up through the rank. Well, this is what would have happened, per se. He should have lost and fought his way back to the title, but they lost. Maybe did a week or two of like, oh my god, I need that back, and then nothing. They lost it in the investment
He,
in his character.
he was in I think at Extreme Rules. Is that the pay-per-view after WrestleMania now? Like, it was the Fatal
Or
4-Way with
payback.
Ambrose or something. I don't know, one of those.
Yeah,
But there was a Fatal 4-Way, Reigns, Ambrose, Rollins, and Randy Orton. And then after that, it went to Rollins versus Ambrose, and Reigns was gone. Orton was
yeah.
gone. And there was so much coming out of WrestleMania because Orton had beat Rollins earlier in the night. So it's like Orton has a thing for the title, like I said in our preview for that, and nothing came of that. Nothing came of Reigns losing. It was just all thrown away.
And it's just hard. I mean, you want people to get invested, but then you do stuff like this where, okay, this person's starting to get some traction, and then nothing.
So
It was
we can
Extreme
look
Rules,
at
by the way.
um, let's see, who the two names we brought up right now before we went live was Ambrose and Bray Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at Ambrose, he's billed as the lunatic fringe. And people try to make comparisons to Piper, to Austin, to even CM Punk. The
Mm-hmm.
potential for that is there. Like, I see it, but
We're
the
not going to
WWE,
get an infamous coconut moment from Ambrose like we did with Rowdy. I would wager to say that their characters are relatively the same in principle, I would argue. Um, they're capable of doing anything, but they're not going to because WWE is so full of frills that there's no room for somebody like Ambrose to cheat the way Rowdy did.
he could still be a face and do all this, and it could still be PG, but he's like crazy. And I saw a little bit of character development during his Rollins feud. Like he was
Mm-hmm.
crazy. He stole the title. That was entertaining because of the weird stuff he was doing with it. Like that was kind of
Yeah.
funny. But then there's nothing. So it's like,
But
why
then they
don't he
dropped it.
just randomly interfere in like random matches. Like go crazy in backstage, like cause a riot or something. You can do all of this in PG. The NWO was happening in a PG show.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Disrupt something. And don't make it simple like, oh, he just threw over a trash can. No, do like NWO. Go invade the production thing. Make it real. You're in the reality era, and there's nothing real about it. We all watch a reality TV show, and we know 90% of that crap is fake. Like, there's no way somebody's going to be that ridiculous. But there's that stitch of, like, doubt. And we don't have that from WWE. If there's something so prestigious about being the number one contender for a title, like with the Intercontinental, and then Big Show comes out within a second. So we know he was just sitting there waiting. No, like that's a bad example for this case, but with what?
here's the with the this has been an argument for a long time. When someone comes running out, like how does their music play? Like they
Um,
go to Gorilla or production or be like, "Hey, hit my music," and then take off.
yeah,
Like in your sense, like shouldn't the Big Show have just like came out with no music and maybe had it like play halfway down the ramp, like production's back there, like, "Oh shit, the Big Show's coming out," hit his music, something.
mm-hmm.
It
Or
would have been
maybe just have a camera down a random hallway and just show like a wrestler walking out and yelling, saying, "I'm taking this," like something interesting.
yeah.
Something not just he's waiting in gorilla like and ready to come out. Make him look like he's in a hurry. Make him look like he's fighting other people. For brain fuck Rollins last week when he issued that challenge, why not have somebody in the back come out and then him say, "Hey, under 200 pounds." Why not invest in that heel character with J&J Security? Use all your tools to get somewhere, to tell a story, to solidify characters. Like I told you, why didn't they bring out a scale? Like I think it would have been hilarious to have somebody big come out, and then have someone like J&J Security, like Crash Holly, walk down a damn scale to the ring, and say, "Weigh yourself. Oh, you're not 200 pounds. Sorry, you're disqualified." Or get somebody right on that threshold and go, "Oh, sorry, you're not 6 foot. You're disqualified," and make it look like a bunch of people are lining up.
Or and then have them even when like Neville steps up on the scale, have one of them put their foot on the scale so it like tips the balance.
Yeah, I think that would be hilarious. That would be good television. That would be investing in characters, and you could easily sell that for an hour, hour and a half of just
And
different vignettes.
I liked Rollins' promo last night, the little thing he was doing with Cena, with the picture
Yeah,
in his mouth. Like that was funny. That was heelish. It was comical. It was just
it was stupid. It was ridiculous. But because WWE invested in a character, they sold it,
right.
in my
And like
opinion.
Cena really broke his nose, so like they're playing on that with the reality era. So now we're mixing kayfabe and reality, and it was just funny. It worked, but there's other stuff that just like Randy Orton comes out. Like here's the thing, Owens comes out and is like, "Oh, Rollins, you tapped out to John Cena." Well, it's like, Owens, if I remember correctly, you beat Cena one time, you lost to him twice in a row, and the last time you fought him, you tapped out. So like your argument is stupid.
I agree. But I guess that's okay for a heel to say because facts don't necessarily matter to a heel.
I guess. But then that's when it goes like, here's a reality era, and you're just insulting our intelligence. And that's my problem with the reality era, which is something that we were talking about earlier, is we all know that it's a work. We all know everything about wrestling is a work. It's just a show. It's entertainment. Yes, they're athletes. There's a thing to it. But, like, I believe the WWE should go back to more theatrical characters and bring back some of that, like you had with The Undertaker and Kane in the Attitude Era, like shooting lightnings from their hands and stuff.
And I think they do have that, as we discussed, with Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt could have, in some respects, been the next Kane for sure, and in done right, close to Taker. Like I don't want to say he's the next Taker because nobody can replace Taker, but he has that character, he has that gravitas to him. But WWE doesn't invest in him. The biggest investment they put into Bray Wyatt was stupid Fireflies, and
Right.
that only got over because of the fans.
Was it? It was at Hell in a Cell last year when Wyatt interfered in the Ambrose match or something like that. I don't remember.
Probably
Ambrose was fighting Rollins, I think. But
okay.
um, Bray Wyatt, the lights go dark. There's smoke coming from the ring, like in the middle of the ring. There's a hologram, and then Wyatt appears from the smoke and attacks Ambrose.
Yeah,
Like that was cool, but there's not enough of it, especially with Wyatt. When he was wrestling Cena at last year's Extreme Rules, I believe he did it with the child. When the child is singing,
got the
the
whole
lights go out.
world.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Wyatt should be doing something like that almost every week.
I agree.
You
And
have that, and like we know it's a work, so why try and put it off as real
and that's the issue. Like I wouldn't even say they need to do it every week. They didn't do Taker every week when he first appeared.
every week? But they need to do it more than like on special occasions.
Yeah, I agree. They need to do it with spontaneity and make it over the top.
They need to do it on Raws and not just pay-per-views. Like the pay-per-views,
I agree.
he could wrestle his match, and that's fine. But then on Raw, he needs to do something spectacular.
And they don't need to do it every time for him, but they need to make the matches when they don't do it meaningful. I would love to see him on Raw every week, but they need to do those segments meaningful and they need to protect that character.
I forget his Raw segments.
Yeah,
Like by the time Raw ends, I'm like thinking like, huh, Bray Wyatt wasn't even on Raw. Oh no, wait, he was. He had that ring interview. He had that promo. Like it's not like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what Bray Wyatt does next week. I can't wait to see Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose get their revenge. I'm just like, okay.
yeah. And one thing, like, I'm really confused, and if you can explain this to me, what was the point of Sheamus being with the Wyatts last week?
A random six man.
Like, they didn't try to put him with it? Because what I got from it was they were trying to put Sheamus with the Wyatt family as that third member.
In that promo, but it was just because it was trying to build for the random six man.
And it comes down to, like, what are you going to do with your characters? Like, I can get behind Sheamus with this stupid freaking beard and all that, his mohawk when he returned and how ridiculous his gimmick was if they invested in it and explained it. Right now, he's just a lobster head with braided a beard.
Right? He's pointless, and he's been pointless for years.
Yet they put. No, I think Sheamus has had a pretty decent run. I've enjoyed Sheamus. I just think whatever he's doing now and giving him the Money in the Bank briefcase and trying to allegedly cash in last night and then have no development in who he is or why does he look so ridiculous is insulting.
I forget that Sheamus has a briefcase. Like I completely forget about it. It's not like in past where like after the person wins, we're like, oh, he's gonna cash in tonight. Like he's gonna cash in tonight. Like nobody's talking about Sheamus cashing.
When is he going to cash in? Nobody cares about him.
And there was a couple weeks ago, or not a couple weeks ago, but after he won, he put on Twitter, use the hashtag cash in now or something on Raw, like when do we want him to cash in. So they were trying to get it to where the WWE Universe would tell him when to cash in. But he only sent that tweet out, and then nothing's ever come of it. So again, WWE, nobody cares about Sheamus.
And they, as a company, know that hashtags can change your business. It can, promote your business. It's free publicity. It's free advertising. Why don't you push that? You want to sit there and push the WWE app, but why don't you push a hashtag cash in now? Like, why don't you, the very least, invest in your character with Sheamus as that? Why don't you throw that up when he comes out or put it under his nameplate and talk about it? Give us something. You want to sit there and not call a match and bombard us with ridiculous content on commentary. ignoring the match, but why don't you do something to talk about promoting a character at least through the hashtag? I don't
And,
care about the main event coming up the rest of the show. I care about the two people in that ring.
using social media, the person that does use social media the best right now is Lana. Lana is like always in character. And even when she's like posting on Instagram out of character, like something you wouldn't think she would do, she has some kind of description that's in character to like change it.
Yeah.
So you're like, wait, is she really like this? Like, it still makes you question it because she's always in character. Like, always. Never breaks her character. And it's refreshing to see someone go that far to do that. But,
And one of the things like we talked about with Stardust. Stardust is an over the top character that people really want to see right now. And his whole investment of going after is it Steve Amell, Green Arrow from the show, like we never heard anything about that until Raw. But we knew about this months ago. So
well,
why what?
the thing with it, Stardust was like sending these little hints, like for people to watch the show. Like when he did his little thing to Dusty when he's talking about dining with kings and queens. Like
Yeah.
Arrow is Oliver Queen, so he's sending that out. He's doing the little um, bow and arrow thing, so he's sending that out. It's a decent developing storyline,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like not enough of it is taking place on Raw. When you have
I
3 hours of Raw and stuff like that is not taking place and it's taking place on SmackDown, like you're messing up.
yeah, that's exactly my whole point was leading to is that Stardust is seemingly getting over on his own through stuff that he's doing. And WWE then doesn't want to display that because they're not the cause for them getting over. They are not manufacturing the circumstances to get Stardust over. They're giving him opportunity after opportunity. Stardust is knocking it out of the park, and then WWE chops him at the legs.
I do have to say that I am happy for Cody Rhodes, Neville, and Wade Barrett for being in a high profile match at SummerSlam. Like it's not high profile for like say wrestling wise, but
Mm-hmm.
entertainment and having a celebrity such as Amel, he was trending on Facebook today. Like it's all over the place. Um,
Yeah.
like these guys are gonna get notoriety from it, and I'm really happy that WWE is putting these guys in there because they usually throw like some top level star that's just not in the title picture at that time.
And like I told you, sadly, it seems like after watching Table for Three specifically about defending the product from actors, Rowdy's rolling over in his grave with Steve Amell on coming to SummerSlam. But I think the difference between someone like Mr. T and Arrow is the fact that Arrow respects the business. He understands the business. I thought his backstage promo was decent, even though Triple H totally sounded rehearsed. There was no authenticity to his, I don't know, his comebacks, if you will.
It just shows like the good actor versus the wrestler.
I
Like that,
agree.
like Amel's a good actor, and now he's going up against a wrestler who's usually just like, this is my company, this is my ring, and like Triple H can't hold his own. Me and Chris were having this discussion. We were talking about lucha, how actors usually make a good transition into wrestling because they can act. So they know how to convey a message. They're actors, and if they're just acting, giving a promo like that, usually they do a decent job. And there's a lot of
To validate your point, David Arquette is world champion.
right. But also, he didn't want the title. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But he had
I
respect for the
know.
business.
I want to
Um,
get heel heat.
if we looked at remember the special guest GMs, the celebrity
Yeah.
guest hosts, like a lot of those were crap. But like Mark Cuban, I loved when he came on. He went through a table.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. I got more respect for Mark Cuban. Bring him back every week. I think Jeremy Pivot was one. Seth Green was one. They got in the ring, and when they got in the ring and actually did something, I didn't mind them.
Jeremy Piven? Really?
Was it him?
Mr. Summerfest?
Was it him or there was someone else got in the ring?
Piven was in the ring cutting a promo and called
Was on the,
SummerSlam Summerfest. Are you thinking of Seth Green, who was in a
no,
tag match?
there was another one. I thought there was one more that got in the ring. But
Yeah.
anyways, point. But it's a high profile match for the mid carders, and I'm glad they're getting it.
And it's going to be a good showcase. I just hope they can do more to promote it. I would love to see Arrow on Raw next week to do something. I'm really annoyed because that line could have been epic from Triple H, Red Arrow versus Green Arrow, but he delivered it so poorly that I know they're going to push it on Raw, and I'm just not looking forward to it.
He delivered it as a joke.
Yeah, and it was terrible.
But what's crazy is there's an actual Red Arrow in the Green Arrow comic.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I didn't know that.
So, I mean, they could do a little tease of like Steven being either Amel or Arrow. Like a little tease would be nice next week. Like
I
maybe
agree.
show like the costume like behind Amel as he's like talking to Neville or something, or like pan out and then like there it is, and you're like, oh, what's going on?
I'd love to see him get some ring gear that was an homage to Arrow and just have him cut that like in a hood. I'd love to see him wear his hood and go be like, "You failed this company" or something. Something stupid, something exciting, something to get us invested in this match. Because again, we have to get invested because WWE won't be doing much.
Which brings us to the point that we were talking about Owens and Cesaro before we went live.
Mm-hmm.
That the only reason that we like people like Owens and Cesaro, one, Owens worked his ass off in the indie scene, made it through NXT, and now we're watching him rise up. Cesaro has been held back for years, and again, he was in the indie scene, and people have been like, "Oh, Cesaro, Cesaro" for years, and now we're watching him rise up. We as fans have found reasons to like these guys, but as you want to go ahead and deliver the line, what you were saying?
Oh, the whole
It's not our job to buy in. Or,
it's not our job to buy in. It's WWE's job to sell. They need to sell us goods that we would then purchase. Like not purchase, but like start to fall and be like, okay, this could be something. It is the OxyClean of wrestling. Everybody looks at OxyClean when that first came out, and you're like, the hell is some powder gonna really revolutionize my laundry? How is some stupid 6-foot wrestler who's under 200 pounds, Adrian Neville, gonna change my philosophy on wrestling? How is that gonna get me to buy in? How is Seth Rollins, this little scrawny dude, gonna get me interested in wrestling? And he goes out there and cuts amazing promo after amazing promo. He wears awesome shirts. He invests in himself, and then we invest in them. We end up buying in, but it's because we love the product.
it's like
a product needs to be advertised. A product needs to be sold in order for people to buy it. They don't just go, oh, hey, I love generic jobber number one. I want to show my support and push him to the moon. No, WWE needs to market them.
right, and no one's really marketed anymore or properly. And
I agree.
it goes to, I was thinking about this too, with character development. There's no raw development, honestly, because there's the 3-hour show, but the beginning of Raw leads to the end of Raw, and like that's it. Really, there's no continuation going forward.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little. Look at last night's main event. Did the main event of last night get you excited to watch Raw next week?
Not at all.
This story could end right there.
Yeah. The only thing I got excited for that ending was to see what they're going to do with Sheamus. But I know, why would I get invested in that? Because WWE isn't going to do anything with him next week.
But here's the thing. We don't know if Cena's going to be at SummerSlam. So is Randy Orton and Sheamus going to be inserted in the match? Like, maybe it's not the winner-take-all match now? Maybe it's Orton versus Sheamus versus Rollins? Maybe Cena is able, but they still make it a fatal 4-way for some reason. But commentary did nothing to make us think of what is going to happen next week. what is
And
going to
that's
happen.
the important fact that I think we can't hammer home enough is we're in the reality era, but what they sell us is nowhere near reality. What we're excited for SummerSlam right now is what they're going to do with that title. But WWE isn't selling that to us right now. All they said was Cena can't be there. Let's see what we can do in the meantime. I'm excited. I am enthralled by the possibility of Cena not being there. They could play that up some more and say, hey, we don't know what we're going to do. We might just have Cena forfeit and you guys wrestle for the combined title. Like something ridiculous. Like what they were trying to do last night. Try to find a new number one contender, blah, blah, blah.
And say next week they still played off that Cena might not wrestle at SummerSlam, and like right at the end of Raw, like Cena makes an appearance.
Yeah.
Like heading into SummerSlam, and there's still no main event. Or maybe there is a main event, but like it was made and then Cena accepts the challenge because like he was on his way to the arena and he didn't know. And
Mm-hmm.
then like there's a bunch of turmoil leading to SummerSlam. Like they did that stuff in the Attitude Era all the time. And then here's the thing: you have the network for $9.99, so it's not like we're spending $60 to find out what the main event for SummerSlam is going to be. Like most of us have the network, so we're going to tune in anyways.
We're already invested in what's going to happen. We bought the network. The closest storyline that I can say done right that is similar to this was when Punk showed up on Raw after Cena won it from Ray, and the cameras went off with both of them holding up the title. Because you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen? We know that Punk is the actual title holder, and we know that it's just a fake title that Ray held for an hour and then Cena won from him. Like,
And like that's the thing. They talk about reality era, but there's no reality here. So it just
mm-hmm.
goes back to my point. Like we know it's a work, so just bring back the theatrics, bring back the crazy stuff. Just
What
do
they
something.
want to sit there and sell us as a bill of goods of reality, it's kayfabe.
It's not.
Wrestling's always kayfabe.
It
And
is.
that's the issue is Cena not being at SummerSlam is reality. Them fumbling the main event is kayfabe reality. And I think that's the differential that most people can't understand.
And that's what I have a hard time connecting. And I've been saying this. I may have mentioned it on a podcast. I've know I said this in our group a lot of times, but the WWE needs to decide if they want to be. I want to say sports entertainment or wrestling. Like I know they're sports entertainment, but I feel that they're trying to cater to too many people instead of like saying this is what we're going to do and we're going to be this. We're going to try and do this, this, and this. Like, and there's a lack there.
There's a reason the Attitude Era took off. And it's because they maybe targeted 2 to 3 demographics at most. But
right.
now they're trying to please everybody, and you're watering down your product.
But I don't even think it's about the target of the demographics. Really, it was just like this is who we are and this is what we're going to do.
I agree.
And I feel
But
like the WWE is more like, because they went public and they have the board, they're like, oh, well, we can't piss people off. But you don't have to piss people off. You don't have to be controversial.
look
Like,
at the 80s.
you don't have to be Lana saying a plane crash, like, even though that wasn't as controversial as everyone made it out to be. But still, like, just have Bray Wyatt appear out of nowhere. Have the lights go out and lightning come from the sky. Have the ring collapse again. Um, just something. Have Dean Ambrose go crazy in the back, and then just have Roman Reigns calm him down. And we're like, what the hell? Like this fool just went crazy, and Roman Reigns is just like, it's okay, little buddy. Like, and then he's fine.
What I think would be great, and along your lines, is why not have the lights go out and then a lantern on every ring post? During a match that Bray's feuding with. Stuff like that.
Have it light up like
Yeah.
once, and then come back on, and you're like, what the heck? And then like keep going out, and just one light comes on every time. Like just something crazy. Like just
Mhm.
to the character so we can.
It doesn't have to make sense. There's nothing about Taker that makes any sense because this is wrestling. This is kayfabe reality. This is we want to be like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? We
And,
don't like. I don't. I watched Mission Impossible today. Good movie. None of it made any fucking sense. None of it's real, but we bought into it because we wanted to be entertained.
and I thought about that when we watch comic book movies.
Yeah,
We've been playing Arkham Knight a lot, and I'm thinking about it like, how can so many people get so invested into Batman or the Joker or any comic book character ever that's really not going to happen, but like we can't invest into the WWE?
I'm
It's
not
like
seeing the argument there per se, but because we know that it's not real,
it's
we
easier
can,
to invest in.
yeah, we can invest because we know it's going to be over the top.
And so that's what I'm saying, like bring back the theatrics to wrestling. Because even in the Attitude Era, um, it was still questionable what was real and what wasn't real.
I agree.
The internet wasn't as big, so the business was still protected, but you still had someone like with these powers shooting lightning from the ceiling.
Yeah,
Like
you
we
still
really,
had Warrior showing up in smoke.
yeah, we thought that Stephanie was really going to be sacrificed.
That's the other point I was just going to bring up. It can be over the top and it doesn't have to make sense because we know people aren't going to get sacrificed, but we want to know the story that's going to be told for that sacrifice, that crucifixion. Like, I want to see how they're going to get out of it. It's just interesting. It's entertaining. We want to see a story be told. And one thing I do have to caution between an internet or an entertainment company versus a wrestling company is how miserably WCW failed by playing nothing but video packages for the entire first hour, displaying no wrestling, stuff like that. So I think we haven't found that happy medium yet.
Lucha has.
That's Lucha though, because they bill themselves as a more of an entertainment company, I think, than a wrestling company.
But isn't the WWE sports entertainment? Like the famous Ted Turner calling Vince, I'm in the wrestling business, and Vince is like, well, we're in two different businesses because I'm in the sports entertainment business. Like that famous line. So shouldn't the WWE should kill Lucha? Like Lucha came in out of nowhere and did what the WWE is trying to do, but better.
But I think anybody with half a brain knows that the whole sports entertainment is just a gimmick so they don't have to pay commissioning fees. It
Like
is
but,
ridiculous.
like if you're going to be sports entertainment, be
Commit.
sports entertainment.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's just legal mumbo jumbo because Vince doesn't want to pay a couple hundred more dollars to ensure the longevity of their wrestlers. He wants to own and control everything.
And
And what you're giving us is garbage.
right. And my thing is too, like I always look at this and everyone talks about indie wrestling so great, and I'm not going to get into the diatribe yet. I'm going to save that. But my argument is if ROH was so amazing, then why do people not watch it? If wrestling sells, why are people not watching? Why is ROH not the highest rated wrestling show on Destination America? Like they're not even beating Impact.
To make your argument right there, I will talk about indies because it totally sells your argument and it also solidifies the reason why Lucha Underground will succeed. Seasons work in wrestling. And I've seen it for 3 years now on the indie scene. We have a show here. Like I was laying in bed last night thinking about this because I couldn't fall asleep. We have about 4 different products, and I can tell you exactly what the company is. And I'm not going to bore you, but like one's WCW, one's modern day WWE, one is TNA, and the other is ECW type of thing, or old WWF. That's what it was. Because every match on that card has a story. Every match on that card has a reason to be there in SSW. They run for, I believe, like 6 to 8 months out of the year. And you hate to miss a show because you're going to miss storylines. I had to miss one show last year because I was out of town. And it's just like, well, now I had my wife call me and tell me everything that happened because every match they told a story, they had great wrestling, and it wasn't oversaturated with insulting our intelligence. But the other two companies out of the four are fucking garbage. They have decent wrestling, but wrestling doesn't sell. Because, like I said at the top of the show, I want a story to be told. I want a reason for those guys to be wrestling. I don't want, and the other two companies are like, these guys have wrestled together for the last year. Nothing's come of it. Nothing's changed. You're stuck with this same old story and you're still making money, so you're not going to change it. And it comes to the whole thing of, well, a wrestler or a promoter is going to ride their cash cow until the udder runs dry. And then by that time, they're too far to shift gears to find a new cash cow because now they're dead. And Lucha Underground is proof that you can run a show for 8 months out of the year. You can do a season, make it heavily entertaining, and make matches mean something. Make that title of I'm going to be the company, like the heavyweight champion, the title for that company. And everybody's trying to get that before the break. Like, that's how you build up prestige.
Right.
It doesn't.
With the WWE, I mean, they don't have to take time off of TV.
They don't.
But they can rotate the wrestlers a little bit better than what they do. And,
I agree.
you know, like, okay, we brought up, I think Ambrose fought Rollins. Yeah, he wrestled him at SummerSlam. I was there in the Lumberjack match. It was right after the Shield broke up last year. You know, they had their little feud.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come back to this year, and they're feuding for the WWE title. But it's like nothing was really brought up about their previous encounters.
I agree.
And it's just like, well, you could have brought that back up.
You have the pieces there to enhance the story, but you're not using them.
Right.
And another thing, too, that really cripples them, and I've talked about it before, is their inability to use the referees to tell a story. The referees are completely meaningless. When I watched Raw last night and they made a joke or a comment about Orton, he knows he's got to pin Rollins in the ring so he can get that title when they were fighting outside. I'm like, the fuck does it matter? The ref's going to count to 10 and nobody's going to care. There's no significance to the ref. There's no importance on counting to 10 other than because back in WWF, you heard that ref and you heard the announcers panicked trying to like, oh no, this isn't going to happen. But now in today, they're like, oh, the ref's at 9. Oh, the match is over. And then Orton looks back like, oh my God. Like, not Orton specifically, but the wrestler at that moment, they are either shocked or don't care.
Like, the ref's at 9 for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
it's stupid.
What the heck? Or like,
the ref gets up to 5 and jumps out of the ring to try to get them back in. Like, what the hell are you doing?
And then the commentators don't tell the story. They're just arguing.
Oh, they need to get back in the ring. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. They can't win the title when it's outside. No. And then when there's a big move, they go, ooh, that's not selling the moves. That's not selling the match. That's not explaining the importance of being outside. That's just sound effects and you bantering back and forth. And I can't get invested in that story when you're not doing anything on commentary.
Right.
Ugh, I'm hot.
So bringing up the refs, I do want to mention, did you hear what happened with the Divas on SmackDown?
No.
It was a botched finish. I guess like the ref counted 3 and awarded the match to Naomi and I don't know. It was like that. It was a tag team match, but it wasn't supposed to end when it did, I guess. So last night on the ref goes to count and he counts super slow. Like it was hilarious. And I was like, now the ref is being like sarcastic, or like the producer of the match told the ref to make slow count so that there's no botched finish this time on Raw.
That's awesome.
It was hilarious.
But you could even make a storyline about that and put the ref at the center of it and have a ref from, even though they can't do that because the authority is so fucked on their storyline, of try to, you know, curb that and make a story and commit long term and throw a wrench in that the ref is trying to throw off the Divas Revolution.
Remember
all these
Patrick,
women who are
AEW.
trying to change the business are now trying to fight the authority. I think it would be interesting. Give us some long term. These three women or these three teams fighting each other, in my opinion, is already old and proof that they don't know what they're doing with this Divas Revolution.
The
I
Divas
do,
Revolution is a joke. Still, the
they're
Divas
just trying to
Revolution.
screw over AJ and make a storyline around it.
The
And,
Divas Revolution is a joke. It's a complete
and
fabrication.
you have the pieces there to make it something, but you don't know how to put them together.
The Becky Lynch and Charlotte had no business on commentary last night.
Do they ever?
Paige was like trying to say something, and they would like ask them questions. Like Michael Cole would ask Charlotte a question, and she would just be like, "Yep." Becky Lynch was the same way. Like, "Yep, I beat her last week." Like,
I did
what?
that.
Paige had a hilarious line though, but Paige is Paige. Like,
You
it's
expect her.
expected. When she said Brie learns from her husband because she can't come up with anything on her own, like
Hmm.
that was great. That was hilarious.
That was almost a shoot. Like it's exciting because it sounds like a shoot.
Yeah. And then that whole battle royal or brawl or whatever was just a complete cluster.
Yeah.
Like, first off, why would PCB jump in the ring? If your rivals are fighting each other,
Hmm.
why go in there and get involved? Like, just let them beat the shit out of each other.
And pick the scraps after.
That's what I would have done. I would have stayed on commentary and talked mess and been like, "Oh, look at these guys fighting each other. Like, we're just gonna sit back and let them fight, and we'll, pick up the pieces."
But even
And
not even do that. Just talk about how they're degenerates and how there's a reason why you're the better team and stuff like that. And like, because we're civilized, blah blah blah. Like, build something up that makes sense. Because just getting into a fight for the sake of getting into a fight makes you look like a stupid thug, and nobody can get behind that.
then let's talk about the story. So Paige is the first ever NXT Divas champion. They bring that up.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Charlotte that beat Paige? Oh no, it wasn't.
No.
Paige was stripped of the title. That's
Yeah.
right. But Charlotte was the next champion.
Yeah.
Nobody is bringing up Charlotte being the former NXT champion.
And it goes along with WWE not wanting to invest in that because if they cared about divas and all that, Sasha would be bringing the title out.
Instead of just mentioning it and mentioning
Yeah.
that Becky Lynch. And then here's the thing. Here's the problem. You had these divas. They weren't ready to be called up. NXT wasn't ready to lose him because now this week, tomorrow night, you have Becky Lynch versus Bayley for number one contendership for Sasha Banks' title that she does only carries on Wednesdays.
Hmm.
Um, at NXT Takeover. Why have two main roster chicks like still be battling for the NXT title if they're supposed to revolutionize Divas on Raw? Like, why do you still need to go down for a secondary title?
Because they don't have long term commitment.
They don't have a long-term plan.
Yeah.
There's
And
no
like
story
you've
arc.
said time and time again, they're getting by on their name and not actual intelligence behind the product.
Right. SummerSlam has been the first proper build for a pay-per-view, and it's not even really been the best build. It's just been the best build in the last few years. But
Because we're getting something.
Paul Heyman wasn't on the show last night.
Yeah.
The biggest match in like I don't know how many years, Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker rematch has been built, as they say, kayfabing here,
Hmm.
the match too big for WrestleMania. Like
Yeah.
when he said that, like it sold me again. I was already sold on the match. Like I haven't cared about Lesnar or Taker in a year and a half, and I'm like, wait, I want to see Lesnar versus Taker. And then Paul Heyman says the match too big for WrestleMania. I'm like, holy crap! You know what? This SummerSlam is bigger than WrestleMania this year.
I agree.
But how was Heyman not on the show last night?
And I I'm okay with Heyman not being on the show. I think that they did a really good job selling that match and promoting it throughout the night with the video package and letting the flames kind of cool a little bit because Heyman going out week after week on the mic, cutting promo after promo, is going to lose its allure after a while.
Yeah, but it hasn't in the last like 2 years. So
I
and
know.
but when you have Heyman versus the rest of the roster, like I'm taking Heyman all day.
I agree. I think I don't have a problem with what they did personally. I don't think Heyman was needed. I think they're trying to sell Raw next week on the simple premise of just remind you, hey, this match is happening at SummerSlam, and this is what's going to happen on Raw next week, and get you more excited for that. WWE has the best video department in the wrestling business. They can put together quality vignettes, and I think last night was just that, a quality vignette to still remind me, get me excited, tease me, and not really do anything.
I'm just saying, Heyman is
You
always
can't
welcome.
have him in, week out, talking better than everybody on that roster because then people also aren't going to be able to get over because their mic skills are subpar.
You could also have Heyman have an interaction with like Triple H or Stephanie about what's going to happen next week with Undertaker and Lesnar being in the building, if
I
they're
agree.
both in the building. So I mean, they could have teased that. But I'm saying like, what's going to happen on Raw next week is my question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do we know? Do we have any excitement for Raw? The only excitement we have for Raw is that it comes on Monday and it's the Raw before SummerSlam. But what are we looking forward to?
And that's the one thing I always hate is the go home show for pay-per-views because the entire show is going to be video packages and meaningless matches. They're not going to put, and it's all safe matches. You're not going to put anybody in the ring with a somewhat precarious position because you don't want them injured before the show. So you're just going to have a lot of talking segments. You're going to have like a stupid contract signing. You're going to have vignettes and then like 4 meaningless matches.
And that's the thing about the 90s. If you watch back on the network, like,
Mm-hmm.
title changes were random as hell.
Yeah.
Like, they would happen on Raw, like, just crazy. And then, like, it changed back on a live event. And then on Superstars. So, like, 2 or 3 weeks back on Raw, like, you already had new champions. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And sometimes it screwed up the pay-per-views. So it was really kind of like, what the heck? They're like changing matches and making different matches and doing stuff. So it was reality back then.
And it made it seem like anything could happen.
Exactly. I don't feel like anything could happen.
I feel like when you were going to go to that live show a few weeks ago, and there's a reason I never go to live shows because nothing happens on them.
Right. I don't go to live shows either. The faces always win and the champions always retain.
I agree. It's always make everybody feel good.
Exactly. There's a couple of surprises, like The Rock showed up in Brooklyn. Jericho's wrestling on live events now, but still, like the faces always win and the champions always retain.
Yeah. So why would I spend money? Why would I spend $25 a piece for shitty seats when I can spend 30 and go to a live show?
Right. I was only going to go to take my son, but then I'm like, it doesn't even matter. Right.
I know, and they run live shows here. Like they run SmackDown here. We had SmackDown here a few weeks ago. I'm just like, no interest.
I'll go to a SmackDown, but I mean, I'm still not going to a live event.
I'm not paying $25 to go to a SmackDown. That's the equivalent of a house show because nothing happened.
But I don't even watch SmackDown. The last SmackDown I watched was the one I went to.
Yeah, I think the last SmackDown I watched was the one I went to 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2013, right before SummerSlam.
Mine was right before Elimination Chamber. Right after Punk left the company.
That
Was that
sucks.
last year? That was last year.
So
I
it's
mean,
horrible.
because it doesn't matter. SmackDown does not matter.
Right.
I could watch every SmackDown on Hulu, but it doesn't matter. Like I don't care.
They're just going to re-show the important stuff on Raw. Like with
Exactly.
Stardust, he's doing a lot of stuff on SmackDown. But why am I going to spend my 2 hours to watch SmackDown when you're just going to show me what he did on Raw? Like I don't need to watch his match because the match isn't important.
And it comes back down to what I said earlier: is why would I get invested in a character if you're not going to get invested in him? I would love to watch SmackDown if they were heavily investing in Stardust, but they also have to invest him on Raw. There's no brand separation anymore, so you can't have a brand exclusive superstar. And that's
Right.
essentially what they're trying to do with some of the mid card. Try to make them a big deal on SmackDown, and then say, well, SmackDown's not watched, so they're not a draw. I go, no, your show isn't a draw. Your wrestlers are fine.
If they made a brand exclusive, like I love the brand split and I always have, if they
Mm-hmm.
did it again, but not necessarily like to the extent of what it was before, but only certain wrestlers wrestled on SmackDown, like it would give me a reason to turn in, like, oh, I want to see Stardust, so I need to watch SmackDown. Like that
Yeah,
does give me a reason. And then he makes a surprise appearance on Raw, like just random. Well, now you have continuality, you have spontaneity, you have everything that we're complaining about right now.
continuity, not continuality. Continuity. Bam.
Uh,
But I mean, that's what WWE did a really good job of saying, hey, just a reminder on Raw, like we're gonna have a little SmackDown invasion where it's gonna be a tag match, And I love the revolving tag titles from Raw to SmackDown, even though it was the fact that WWE didn't see the importance of tag divisions, so they didn't have enough tag teams for um, brand exclusive title. But it said like, hey, this is the wrestling we do on both shows. These are SmackDown superstars who own the title. And now they're going to come to Raw to show you how it's done. Like, that was really good television.
yeah, I really liked it. I understood the point of them having like the same titles, like a main title, a secondary, and a tag title on each show. But I also
Hmm.
like the idea of the all champions going back and forth between shows.
I agree.
Um,
Because it
like,
seemed like that was important to get a title so you can be on both shows.
and then you get new matches all the time. But
Hmm.
it just, I mean, my friends used to come over on Friday nights and watch SmackDown. Like we used to have SmackDown parties, kind of.
Okay.
Like 'cause we weren't like into going out or whatever and partying. Like we'd go out sometimes, but a lot of times we'd just come home or we'd just stay in and watch SmackDown.
SmackDown and chill.
Yeah, like that's what we did.
And that's what makes me sad. Like, I used to, back when, this is how embarrassed, here's an embarrassing story for me. Do you remember when, I want to say 2011, 20, it'd be 2011, when they did the ECW reunion for TNA?
Hmm.
Hardcore Justice, I believe it was, where like Tommy Dreamer was the booker, blah, blah, blah. I had a bunch of friends who weren't wrestling fans and were like, oh, shoot, I want to go see this. This looks awesome. Like, okay, come over, give me $5, and we'll order the pay per view. And halfway through the pay per view, I told them, just keep your money and we're going out. Because it's nice having people come over because they're invested in the product. But what we see right now and that we saw towards the end of brand extension is I don't want to watch that. I want to go out. Why would you have you're not drawing random people into the product and get them invested because you're not investing in your product long term.
Right. So starting with WrestleMania 19, that's when I met like two of my best friends. One of them I don't talk to now. That's a different story. But starting there, every like pay-per-view we got together. Every WrestleMania we got together, and then we went from like, or it went to the WrestleManias we got together to watch. Then it moved to WrestleManias and SummerSlams, and then WrestleMania, SummerSlams, and Rumbles to like just random pay-per-views when we ordered them. Then it got to the point where we grew older, our lives got busier and stuff. So it wasn't necessarily any more about the pay-per-view because we could care less because they weren't giving us a reason to watch. It was
Mm-hmm.
more of the fact of just getting together with our friends.
I agree.
We're like
And
this kind of like we're happy to be together, but it sucks because it's like
and
why are we watching the show? Like this is just an excuse.
and some people can laugh, but that is exactly the case I have right now. I have my friends Matt and Kat come over every Sunday for a pay per view, and we're like, because we just love wrestling. We love to get together. We love to watch wrestling. But for the last three shows, last three pay per views, we played board games the entire time. And while there are some really entertaining board games, there should be no reason a board game is more important than a pay per view. I would be surprised if we played a board game for SummerSlam, but in the area, since starting last year, we did our own Great American Bash for the pay per view. We just cook out, watch the pay per view outside, and hang out and have fun. Because it's about coming together and having fun and watching the show. And WWE hasn't provided that to us in a couple months.
And that's the thing, like we came together over wrestling. My other best friend, we came together over wrestling. And so it's like it's something that we feel special. So like when we get together and it's not about the wrestling, like we're getting together for a wrestling event and then we have more important things going on than that wrestling, like we kind of feel cheated because
Mm-hmm.
it's like it should be about this. Like this is an important thing, but like you're not giving us a reason for it to be important. Like I don't like getting on these podcasts and complaining.
I agree.
Like I don't like writing negative articles. Like it's easy to get on here and complain and vent, but I don't like to do it. I'd rather get on here and be like, Raw was amazing, and I can't wait till SummerSlam. I can't wait to see this match and that match. What's going to happen? Like how they're doing this is really good. I don't like getting on here and being negative.
And that's why, like, even now, I'm trying to sit there and try to find good things. But it's not that we are negative because we hate the product and wrestling's fake. It's that we know what can be done to be good, and that's just not happening.
And we're not even saying go back to the Attitude Era. All we're doing is saying this is how it used to be, and you can use these elements to still progress. Like these elements will still work.
And
Like
I,
movies that were made like when movies were first made and look at movies now. Like the same stories have been told over and over. If you just look at stories, like how are the fairy tales, like the Grimm brothers fairy tales, still popular today?
there's a reason why Hamlet can be adapted to modern day and still be entertaining. There's a reason a bunch of Shakespeare's plays can be modernized and adapted, but still hold true to the premise. We're not asking you to go back to the Attitude Era. We're saying it worked in the Attitude Era. Rowdy Piper worked in the 80s in a PG landscape and one of the most controversial, outspoken wrestlers. People, PG doesn't kill wrestling. The premise of being PC kills wrestling. There's
And you
nothing
don't,
politically correct about wrestling. They're supposed to offend us per se. They're supposed to push the envelope, but not be offensive and make us buy in. I
but
wouldn't. Oh, go
you
on.
could do that. You could be PC and offensive.
Well, my whole yeah, I agree. Look at a lot of what Rowdy did was PG and PC, but
One of my
offensive.
One of my favorite lines was from CM Punk, and it's so simple. He told the Big Show, "You're stupid and nobody likes you."
Yeah,
Like it was so simple, but it was real. Like you're stupid and nobody likes you.
and one of the things I would wager, and you can make the argument, but I still believe it's in a PG landscape, the straight edge society, because they tug at the strings of people. They tugged at our fabric, of our moral fabric and our being, and that elicited a response that
Yeah,
made us. But they didn't sit there and say, we're the next God, we're the second coming of Jesus, and we're better than you. It was like, no, they hinted at it. They pushed that envelope enough to get a response, but still remained in the parameters of political correctness.
the
In
thing
my
you have to do is you have to say things in a way to make us assume that you're talking about a certain thing, to make us assume that you think that you're, something else.
and it's stuff that Bray Wyatt for the long time was hinting at.
Right.
Bray Wyatt cut then and arguably now cuts great promos that hint to stuff that would be borderline offensive, like demonic type stuff or like creepy stuff. But then WWE doesn't follow up on it. So what's the point?
Right. I've been bored with Wyatt for like over a year now.
Because they don't invest in him long term. It's fulfilling the id of McMahon of what would pop circumstantially and not focusing on the long term. I was trying to not make that more psychology. Long term and satisfy everybody.
Right. Like I feel the Wyatt family should have grown from 3 to like 5 or 6.
And that's why I was like buying into like, oh, I I could see Sheamus in there. He's kind of a larger than life character with his really ridiculous gimmick. But I know they're not going to do that. And then I saw this Raw, and I'm like, nope, they dropped the ball on that.
And like they could take people. Like everyone's talk about Bo Dallas. Like
Mm-hmm.
throw him in there or the Ascension. The Ascension would work. Like it's obvious, but you put it in a way where Bray Wyatt is like your savior, and he's helping you overcome the obstacles that have been handed down, like placed in front of you by the so-called man. And if Bray Wyatt would have built his army and then went after like the Authority or something,
Mm-hmm.
like that's TV right there.
But that would involve long-term planning.
Involve good writers, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
They have these writers that aren't wrestling writers.
But let's cancel it here and not beat a dead horse, because I think you all get the point of what we're trying to say.
Yeah, hopefully.
If you want to continue this discussion, and we hope you do, because we love this type of conversation, and you want to yell at us for being negative netties, and all that, then let us know. Like, let's have this discussion. What are
You
we
know
right
that
on? What do you think we're wrong on?
the IWC isn't going to complain about us being negative because it's a cool thing to hate the WWE.
That's a good point.
But
I think
I would never hate the WWE. I'm an E guy for life. Like
you're a
that's what
mark.
that's what I'm gonna be. ROH sucks.
You're a money mark.
Yeah, it's the big times. Like if anything was any good, if everything else was as good, then they would be making money too. But they're not because it doesn't sell.
And the only exclusion would be Lucha, who have been growing exponentially leaps and bounds. And I think season 2 is going to be bigger than 1. I can't wait because right now they have a winning formula.
But there's problems with that.
I agree. And
That's
that's
another
a topic for another day.
right. But
So let's end it here and say our sign offs.
okay, if you want to continue this discussion, and I could continue to explain how ROH sucks. You can find us at facebook.com/Pushman Wrestling. Follow us on Twitter at PMW Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment below. We have an Instagram. Follow us there,
Yay.
Push Madness Wrestling. That's actually taken off, sort of, I guess.
People
And
are doing things right.
I think that's everything. Um,
Okay, don't forget to add us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, like you said, personal Twitters and the Facebook pages themselves. We're always up for discussions. We love to talk to fans and stay classy.